man who claims to have seen True Romance 6,000 times, the Prince of Popcorn, Matthew Matt K. Kupinski. And in the opposing corner, his opponent, the film critic who once banned Marvel movies, hailing from Chicago suburbs, the box office bombshell, Ryan, the movie guy, Jay Yellow.
All right, you two, I want a clean fight. Keep your guard up and no Nicolas Cage. You got it? You got it? Okay, fight. Both men are shuffling around here, Phil. I wonder who's going to take the first punch.
Man, I'm going to hit you so hard your face is going to be as ugly as Thor 2.
Daniel Day-Lewis is really just a guy called Dan Lewis.
Oh, both critics are giving as good as they're getting. I've never seen such an even match.
Titanic sucked.
The MCU is over.
Oh my God, what a stunning double blow. Both men have fallen to the mat. This could be a double knockout, folks.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Ryan? What happened?
I think we just knocked each other out. We must be in La La Land.
Really? I don't see Emma Stone.
I mean, we're unconscious. This is a dream sequence, I think.
Wow, that's weird. Well, I mean, if it's a dream sequence, who's dreaming? Is it me or you?
Both of us, I guess.
If only Phil were here, then we could do the podcast at least.
Hey, guys.
Phil, you're back.
It's
like
a dream
come true.
Oh, yeah. I've actually been stuck in this episode's dream sequence for like 3 weeks. It probably happened when you guys messed with the quantum realm.
Okay, well, play the theme song. No, not that one.
You're listening to CinemaJaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from somewhere in the universe. My name is Matt K, and with me is
Rye, the movie guy, and sitting alongside us is Filmy and Phil.
Thank you so much. It's great to be back.
This week on CinemaJaw, Matt, we're talking boss battles, our top 5 boss battles indeed, and that's because we're reviewing Creed 3.
And we have an amazing guest joining us, Paul Farber. He is the host of a podcast called The Statue, which takes a 6-part look at the Rocky statue in Philadelphia. It's from WHYY and NPR. And I'm thrilled to have Paul on the podcast, Rye.
Absolutely. Paul is from Philadelphia, we should mention, which is where Rocky's from. So, I mean, this all makes perfect sense. I can't wait to talk to Paul about Rocky, the Rocky statue, and obviously Creed 3.
Indeed, indeed.
Besides that, we have to play some trivia. And in honor of Creed 3, we are playing boxing movie trivia. Sound good, Matt?
I got my gloves up, Ryan. I'm ready to defend myself.
And as you
probably
heard
get knocked out.
As you heard at the top of the show, and we need to talk about this and be sincere, this is our 600th episode of CinemaJaw. To Phil, to Matt, glad I'm doing it with you guys, and congratulations.
Congratulations to you, Rye. And to you, Phil.
Thanks. Congratulations to you guys, too. You know what's a real trip to think about? One, so my first episode, I believe, was the Creed 1 review, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
And we're coming up on, we're getting pretty close to 10 years of Phil, which is why I can't think of anything I've done for at least 10 years other than live and go to school. It's wild.
I mean, me and Rye, what is this, our 13th year?
Well, we started in 2009, so I guess at the end of this year, October, it'll be 14 years.
Holy Crap, that's a long time. I'm really looking forward to episode 666 myself, and that's really not that far away. It's coming right up.
Oh,
boy, I
yeah.
hope that falls in Halloween, dude.
That is crazy to think about. 14 years? This is nuts. But 600 episodes, as I thanked Phil and I thanked Matt, we also got to thank the JawHeads for listening, supporting the show. We do it for you guys, and we love talking movies and hearing your feedback. So this has been a blast, and we're going to keep going for as long as the Rocky series is going. We're going to keep going.
Hey, I have a quick challenge for the Jawheads. If you've been a long time listener, like a long time listener, and you can remember stuff like when we used to record at Mother's, drop us a line. I'd just like to hear about that. Shoot us a tweet or an email. That would warm my heart.
And also, I think it's important. We should also thank the guests who have come on too. I think like we owe so much to them as well. I mean, 600 episodes worth of different people. One, that's not easy to get, but I think it says a lot about the film industry, just how many passionate people are out there making this stuff too. And we owe a lot to you guys as well for, if it was just us three assholes, that would get old real quick.
Agreed.
Well said, Phil.
Just to pull the curtain back a little bit here, we've had very few cancellations through the years, believe it or not. I mean, it's going to happen from time to time, but it's amazing from day one getting guests on how many have come through. It's staggering to me. And like I say, very few times is it like, where's the guest? I mean, there were a couple of times where we were booked and we had to go solo because something happened. But for the most part, we're booking guests all the time, and Matt does a great job with that. And we got a great one coming on this week. I can't wait to talk to Paul. It's fascinating.
Yeah, from here on out, everyone's canceling because Ryan just jinxed it.
I hope not. It'll be Paul. We can't get Paul on the line suddenly. Good stuff. Well, it is March is the other order of business we want to get to here. We get done celebrating Michelle Pfeiffer. Very fun month of February. It's a short month, unfortunately, so Michelle only got 28 days. We move into March, and we narrowed it down to 3 people that we were thinking of doing a theme on, and we turned to our Patreons, and they voted for none other than the great Willem Dafoe. He has a new movie coming out this month, middle of the month, and we're going to review it here on CinemaJaw, called Inside, in which he plays art thief. So Willem Dafoe back on the center stage. We'll be celebrating him all month long. Let's kick this month of Willem Dafoe off with a fact.
Yes. In addition to being at least top 5 craziest people in Hollywood, or craziest looking, I should say, best at playing crazy, Willem Dafoe also has made history when he became the first actor nominated for an Academy Award for playing a vampire in a movie, which is crazy to me because vampires are like usually the best selling of monsters, Who cares about a mummy's performance? Tom Cruise was in The Mummy, but he was never a mummy, is my point.
Two answers to that question. First of all,
hold on. Let him finish the fact here, Matt.
All right, go ahead.
Willem Dafoe's performance in the Oscar-winning film Shadow of the Vampire earned him the nom for Best Supporting Actor and really cemented his place in cinema history. Dafoe's portrayal of the vampire in that film, Count Orlok, was praised for its realism and intensity. Realism when it comes to a monster is also saying something huge. And his performance is widely acclaimed by critics and audiences alike. He does have a very vampire-esque look about him.
He sure does. I have actually never seen that film.
I
have a bunch of Dafoe blind spots. So I'm excited to actually catch up with some of these that I've, needed an excuse to finally hit play on.
I believe that's not the only time he ever played a vampire.
Well, he was in Daybreakers.
Right. But he was human, wasn't he?
I wasn't positive on that. If he was...
Oh, gosh, I can't remember either.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just throw it in the fish tank. Can't remember. Find out.
Perfect, yeah. Was Willem Dafoe a vampire? I'm going to say yes, but let's see what the fish tank has to say.
I think he might have been human, but yeah, we'll see. It's good to have Phil back,
Oh, it sure is. It sure is. Let's get this show rolling, Matt. Without further ado, we bring in our guest. Paul Farber is the host of The Statue. also part of the Monument Lab co-founder. He is. Paul, welcome to CinemaJaw.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So
we were
ahead,
teasing
Ryan.
this episode since last week. We mentioned that we were excited to talk about Creed 3 and that we had this great guest coming on because you do a podcast about the Rocky statue. What a great tie-in here. You're from Philadelphia. How big of a deal is Rocky in Philadelphia?
Rocky is as big as anything in our history, in our culture. We call him the most famous Philadelphian who never lived. And that there's examples in the city. When you get to the airport, you can get your Ben Franklin historical gear or your Rocky gear. You can go almost anywhere in the city and put your arms up in the air triumphantly and people know what you're talking about. But I even put it as like when I'm traveling around the world and I will tell someone, a cab driver, like, I'm from Philadelphia. And like, even if they barely speak English, they say Rocky and they put their arms up too. So it's like, it is as big as it gets. It's one of the icons of the city. We have soft pretzels, the Liberty Bell, and Rocky.
So you're the co-founder of the Monument Lab, which is a lab that researches public art and public spaces. But in choosing the statue of Rocky, I'm assuming you must be like a Rocky super fan.
I have to say I am someone who I had an older brother who really grew up more in the years of Rocky. I was born the year that the Rocky statue came on film, which was 40 years ago. And so I knew about the Rocky series. You could not go anywhere in the city without hearing the theme song. Like, I mean, in my elementary school, in our gym class, if you went to a Phillies game, you would hear it. But really, it kind of later in growing up is when I came into Rocky. I think it's more that my understanding of the statue, which started out, made for Rocky 3 and then ended up being a monument in the city. That was really the way I entered into the film series.
So about that, obviously, yes, the statue is in Rocky 3, a fabulous scene where Rocky gets pissed at his own statue and he throws his motorcycle helmet at it. He's really pissed. And it's a beautiful statue. But tell us about what happened here after the film ended, why they decided to keep the statue. Was there a discussion there that they always were going to keep the statue, or how'd that come about?
Yeah, I have to say it's like such a fascinating moment. It's on one hand, it's actually the way a lot of statues come into this world, which is someone says it should be here and they leave it. And so what you have is, for just thinking about this film, Rocky 3, Stallone is not only the star, but he's also the director. And he made a choice for the statue to appear. It's not made of styrofoam or of wood. He worked with the artist A. Thomas Schomburg to render the Rocky statue in bronze. So while it was made as a prop, so to speak, it was interchangeable with any number of bronze statues in the city. I think in a kind of, let's say, a power move, Stallone and the team at the studio left the statue at the top of the steps. And, because the series is all about art and life blurring, it immediately became beloved by people who were kind of in the footsteps of the Rocky film series. But the art museum next to it was not really keen on the idea. So you have this kind of back and forth between the city of Philadelphia, between Stallone, who donated the statue, the gift that no one asked for, and the museum. And I think what's so fascinating that we learned through the Statue podcast was, Stallone is an artist. He has a practice of being an artist and seeing the way that art is a way to navigate the world. And I think that it actually was the ultimate way to open up the museum. and create this powerful dynamic. Over the years, that statue moved from various places. It went down to the stadiums in South Philly, of course, where famous scenes from the Rocky series took place at an old arena, the Spectrum, that's since been demolished. It got moved back to the Art Museum for the party for Rocky III's premiere, which happened at the Art Museum, for scenes in other movies. Of course, Rocky V, it returns. And it wasn't until 2006 that an agreement, that's maybe not even the right way to put it, a big public debate that ultimately led to an agreement to have the statue dedicated not back at the top of the steps where it appeared in the film series, but at the bottom of the steps, was brokered. And so since 2006, the statue has been there. It attracts over 4 million visitors a year, which is Statue of Liberty numbers.
Wow.
And is, again, part of the story that it has kind of bobbed and weaved through the city, so to speak, and is back in the place that made it famous and, is part of the legend.
It's awesome. I was listening to your podcast, and on there, on the Statue podcast, you play a voicemail from Sylvester Stallone where he's talking about, various things. But at the end of the podcast, he talks about why the steps and why people run up the steps and make this pilgrimage to Philadelphia. And I thought he made an excellent point. He said it's not like you can use the Force or real lightsabers out of Star Wars or go to places a lot of times in the movies, but the steps in Philadelphia are real. And it's something that you can see this character Rocky accomplish something, and it's something that you can do in real life. I'm a Chicagoan. I've only been to Philadelphia one time, and I've told this story on CinemaJaw on probably Rocky 6 and Creed 1 and 2, but I stopped at a visitor center, Paul. I crap you not here. I said, where's the Liberty Bell and where are the Rocky Steps? That's all I want to see in Philadelphia are those two things. And really not in that order. I want the Rocky Steps first, and then if I have time, I'll check out the Liberty Bell. But I had to see the Rocky Steps, and I'm sure it's that way for a lot of movie fans.
It's that way for a lot of movie fans. It's just that way, I would say, for many visitors. My earliest memory of Rocky was when I was still like before elementary school, and my older brother had a French Canadian exchange student, Marty Burrell. And he arrived to the city, and our family asked, where do you want to visit? Do you want to go to the Liberty Bell? Do you want to go to Independence Hall? And this was a time in the late 80s, and he was like, I want to go to the Rocky Steps. And,
wow.
My mom, who was a big inspiration behind the series, she's interviewed in episode 1. She makes a great cameo. Found this Polaroid that we took when we visited with my brother and, Marty, the exchange student, like doing kind of a muscle pose. And I'm kind of like sliding in, almost photo bombing, which I didn't even remember that moment. But I share that because you're not alone, that people come here. I will tell you, when I've gone and done reporting for the series, like you'll bump into people who are, from various neighborhoods in Philadelphia, but I have met people who've come from Kuwait I said, why are you here? And they said, I'm here to see the Rocky statue and run up the steps. People from Mexico City, people from all over. And I think that, it's a pilgrimage site. And there's something about the steps and the dynamic with the art museum behind it. We call it the ultimate people's pedestal. Like, this is a spot where, as a city, like, we had our Super Bowl parade. It's also a place where important protests against racial injustice happen, where there are vigils for people slain in the murder crisis. And if you go almost any day of the year, there are people going there. It's where you go to see the city and also to be seen. And it's true for people who live here and people who visit from all over the world.
That's beautiful, man. That is. There's nothing like a love letter to a city,
Profoundly.
Yep.
And I think, this dynamic, like something that we try to bring out in the podcast, that, one, this is not the Rocky statue is not the first artwork involving a boxer. Like, you can look at antiquity and see examples of like classical sculptures. You think about Andy Warhol, Keith Haring, Jean-Michel Basquiat. That's part of the boxing history. But even then, I think about like what Stallone, as an artist, as the creator of the series, tapped into, but also what he drew from. And he's, Rocky character is not the first boxer in real life or in the movie world to run up the steps. Joe Frazier, real life heavyweight champion, is someone who is known for running up the steps and punching meat before the character Rocky did it. So I think there's all these important narratives, and it also kind of brings up the questions of like, what history do we remember and what history doesn't get elevated and spotlighted in the same way?
We were celebrating Sylvester Stallone here. We pick a different theme every month. This month is Willem Dafoe month, but we were celebrating Sylvester Stallone, and we did a interesting fact about it. The time he runs up the steps is one of the first times that they use Steadicam.
It's the first major use of it.
And it's mind-boggling because I watched that scene so many times growing up. It's definitely a movie and a moment in the movie that made me love film, right?
Seared.
And you watch that and you're like, wow, everything that just worked. It's the perfect time, the perfect actor, the perfect technique, and magic happens. That's what happens sometimes with movies,
Yeah, so I just think like it's worth kind of pausing on that. Like, when we talk to historians in the series and we said, like, why is the Rocky statue and the Rocky story so iconic? They say step one is the Steadicam. So you have Garrett Brown, the inventor of the Steadicam, who had, before he got involved with the Rocky series, had been testing this. We're so used to now we can have make a film with whatever devices in our pockets and move with it, and it's stabilized. But it was really difficult to be able to move with someone in motion. Garrett Brown had done a test with his wife around different places in the Philadelphia area, and the Art Museum steps was one of them. Of course, there's this history of the Art Museum steps and Joe Frazier and boxers running up it. But there's that what you said, Matt, that this idea that scene has been seared into our minds. I feel like we feel it in our bodies. Like, you feel like you're flying along with. And I'll tell you just a quick story. Last summer, when we were reporting for the podcast, we went to a screening at the Art Museum steps of Rocky I. And, it was great. There was like a good trivia right before it and dancers. When you got to the film, people were excited, but the biggest applause happened at the moment of Rocky running up the steps. It wasn't during the fight scenes. It was the steps. I will tell you, we went to Rocky the Musical, and the biggest cheering is when he runs up the steps on stage, even though there were only like a dozen of them. So there is just something about what the Steadicam offered our eyes and our bodies that made you feel like you were kind of flying alongside Rocky. And now that same inventor of the Steadicam, he invented the camera that goes over football games that you can really kind of go in, or if you think about the Olympic divers, and you can like follow along. So those are ways that this is about movies and film, but it's even bigger than that. It's about how we see motion and movement and get right pulled alongside it. And
we should mention the amazing score that accompanies these brilliant visuals, right? Because I think that adds to it too. And we'll get to that on Creed 3 because I think it was lacking there, but we'll talk about that.
Oh yeah, great.
For sure. For JawHeads that want to listen more about the Rocky statue, check out your podcast. Where should we send them?
Yeah, so the statue is put out by WHYY and the NPR Podcast Network, and you can get it anywhere you listen to podcasts. NPR One, Spotify, Apple. It's called The Statue.
And as always, we'll throw a link in the show notes for everybody to grab a handy shortcut to it.
Paul, throwing you on the spot here, we are celebrating Willem Dafoe this month. Do you have a favorite Willem Dafoe performance that you can whip off the top of your head here?
I'm is a maybe a not as much of a deep cut, but I love him in Spider-Man.
No,
That is
a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. He's fantastic. And reprised that role recently in No Way Home, which was also a great performance. Good pick.
For sure. Paul Farber is going to be sitting in on this entire Jaw. He has seen Creed 3 inside the city of Philadelphia. So we'll talk about that.
Amazing.
And what that was like.
Yeah, I just got back 20 minutes ago. So it's I still have the popcorn like
stuck
smell
in your
on
teeth.
me.
Yeah.
I didn't even go to floss. I came right here to CinemaJaw.
We appreciate it.
Fantastic. Back in 2015, the Rocky franchise, which at the time seemed to be done, came storming back with new blood in the way of Michael B. Jordan. He played Apollo Creed's son, who Rocky would end up training. The film was a huge success with fans and critics. In fact, it garnered an Academy Award nomination for Sylvester Stallone. With this kind of success for Creed, it can only mean another 5 or so films in the series. Creed 2 came out in 2018, and now we have Creed 3. This film marks the first time Sylvester Stallone does not appear in the series. Will he be missed, or will Creed 3 be another knockout? Matt Kay, Paul, and I stepped into the ring to find out.
One day you came back. The past came back too.
There may have been a time when Damien had your back.
No friends in the industry.
But that's not what he's doing now.
My brothers been my brothers, man. They no killing me a fact.
Before I got locked up, I was the best.
You a coward, bro. And a fraud. Try spending half your life in a cell.
Watching somebody else live your life.
I had to draw the line.
I'm just getting started, little brother.
I had to draw the line between my brothers and my enemies.
I'm coming for it all.
He's not gonna stop.
Then you make him.
The good thing about reviewing a Rocky or Creed movie is that you don't have to spend too much time on the plot, as the formula stays the same in every film, with minor tweaks along the way. This time we get a flashback to a younger Adonis Creed hanging out with his best friend Damien, better known as Dame, played by Jonathan Majors. In the flashback we get a fight, a crime, and some vagueness. We learn that Dame took a fall for Creed. Now, back in present day, Dame is back in the picture and looking for help. But the truth is, he's out for revenge. This leads us to the big fight at the end, which we have now seen 9 times. Funny thing is, I was still invested in the action in the ring. They gave me just enough to care about the result. Michael B. Jordan directs the film, as well as stars in it. He brought some nice flourishes to the fight scenes. We get some slow-mo at one point to heighten the impact of the blows, and one real nice touch sees the boxers at one moment in the ring in front of a cheering crowd and then slowly disappear into a setting that is just the 2 boxers by themselves fighting in the ring in what I would almost call a dreamlike state. Let's start with the basic question here. Did Creed 3 win you over? We'll start with Matt Kay.
Mostly, yeah. I was really confused about how I felt about the movie when I was walking out. But I ultimately decided that it's a good movie, incredibly predictable and formulaic. But you know what? It's like a Pop-Tart. You put a Pop-Tart in the toaster and there's no ambiguity. We know what's going to happen. There's no subtlety. There's no variation in what comes out of the toaster. And it's a pretty simple process. But God damn it, I love a good Pop-Tart. So that's exactly how I feel about Creed 3. This is a kind of a schmaltzy, saccharine sequel that follows all the same beats, but it's got some great acting in it, believe it or not. And God damn it, it's a good formula. So I liked it.
Paul, your initial take on Creed 3?
Yeah, I have a different pop take. I would say popcorn. It's a great popcorn film. Like, it is made for a big screen. It's actually the first film I've seen back in a theater since the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And I'm really grateful that I saw this on the big screen. I think what I got out of this, of course, there is a formula that the Rocky series has, but I actually think it nuanced it a bit. And it nuanced it by morphing kind of who is the underdog and what does that mean at different moments. I actually think, this is the first movie in the Rocky large series, the Rockyverse, that Sylvester Stallone doesn't appear in, though his name does come in with a production credit. I'm not sure exactly what his role was. I was thinking about an interview that he gave a few months ago where he talked about he said a regretful situation, not being in this film, and saying that, that this film went into a dark space. Like, it was as hinting at some of the themes that come up here, which are about trauma and pain. I would say actually a lot of the Rocky series hovers around trauma and pain, but you don't always get to go inside the characters' heads and really understand that. And I don't know, I felt in this film that there was enough eye candy in terms of utilizing new and novel shots from the series, but also really allowed, I don't know, some emotional space that actually was only made the boxing scenes that much more exciting.
I feel bad about my Pop-Tart comment.
I love Pop-Tarts.
I do too.
Strawberry glazed. Yeah.
I go s'mores myself.
Oh, that's my second choice.
So Jonathan Majors is the opponent in this one, and Jonathan Majors has blown up on the scene. If we weren't going to do our top 5 favorite boss battles, which we're doing tonight, my other suggestion to Matt was actors or actresses who've blown up on the scene so quickly, like Jonathan Major has. I mean, the guy comes out in 2017, just 6 years ago, with like a small movie, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and now he's Mr. A-list in every big movie that's coming out right now. I thought Jonathan Majors was fantastic here. Me and Matt, I know when we walked out, we talked about it. He's one of those rare few that doesn't have to do much and can convey a ton with just his facial expressions.
Oh, man.
Just his presence on screen. I was a huge fan of Jonathan Majors here. I know you were as well, right, Matt?
My God. I could sit and watch Jonathan Majors just make faces. I think my comment is like, he's like, not since Jim Carrey have we seen such control over one's face. And of course, Carrey used it to comedic effect and Majors uses it for dramatic effect. But man, I could watch his face for 2 hours. He's that good. And then his presence, his gravity, he just sucks me in every time. I loved The Last Black Man in San Francisco because of him.
Yeah.
And that was my favorite movie of that year, of 2017. And I've been championing him for a long time, and I'm so happy to see him popping because I think he is phenomenal. He steals the show from Michael B. Jordan, which is kind of saying a lot, really. That's a tall order.
I agree with you on that. And, you're talking about his facial reactions. We're just about, a week or so past the dunk contest for the NBA All-Star game. And Jonathan Majors, probably as like Creed promotion, was at the side of the court and like became a meme, just the way his face reacted to the dunk contest. So I was thinking about that. But, as you said that, I mean, he had these registers of vengeance, pain, control, and also vulnerability. It just all went together.
No doubt. One thing that I liked that was a nice touch is, for the most part, throughout the Rocky series, the fights take place in a forum or an arena that is kind of unremarkable. It's CGI crowd nowadays, but still, I liked that they put the fight in Dodger Stadium out in LA. That was
amazing.
Awesome, wasn't it? I thought that was a great touch to do it inside a baseball stadium, because that is something nowadays we would make like a huge spectacle of an event. If Mike Tyson was fighting somebody or something. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Stick it in Wrigley Field for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That was a
Ryan,
real nice touch.
Ryan, you made a point, and it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I just think it really, to me, crystallized what ultimately compelled me about this movie is you're in the midst of the stadium. There's fanfare. There is like fireworks. The cinematography is really powerful. And then all of a sudden, the inner demons that each of the opponents have, and then their own like both animosity and care for each other. Like it's like they flip a switch, and they're fighting each other and fighting themselves. And there was an elegance to it. And so you get these moments of like the stadium being filled, and then it boils down to ultimately what it means to face your own fears, limits, and then overcome them.
Let's talk about what the movie is missing, because it's missing a few things. I know Ryan wants to talk about the music, but it's also missing as much as I appreciate some of the depth you pointed out to me, Paul, in terms of the social commentary and the subtleties in the ring and everything like that. There are some very predictable moments in the movie. It's not exactly going to catch you off guard.
Yeah, I will. I don't want to spoil too much, but there would be a few moments where like there would be one clue, and I would talk to my friend Andre, who's a radio producer and a filmmaker, and I was like, I know it's going to happen, and then it would happen. Yeah, I mean, and I think that it's interesting when you bring up the music. There are, I think, one or two moments where I could hear the kind of like a stem or like a small moment of Bill Conti's original score. And I just wonder why not lean into that a little bit more? But yeah, there are moments here that, like you have to kind of take a leap. Like I'm in this popcorn big hit, and I'm going to follow where they're going. But yeah, there are moments you suspend that.
My take on the music missing is I think it probably would have felt to Michael B. Jordan. I think he made the decision that if Sylvester Stallone's not going to be in this movie, and we might take this, let's be honest, we might get another 3 Creeds, right? We saw Rocky go 6 deep, so you never know how far
is
Creed's
his daughter going to be a star in a future Creed?
Oh, right. I hope so.
Possibly.
That's what that's my prediction.
So I think at some point they got to leave the music, the iconic music that really, embodied Rocky, the character. And yes, it was in the Creed. It was probably the best moment in Creed, the first one that came up when they played the music. It's the emotional beat of the film is when that music finally plays. But I think he's thinking long term, hey, that was Rocky's music. Stallone's not in this movie anymore. Yeah. Let's not play that as the big theme anymore.
Well, didn't you have a theory that it was also about the studio switch, Ryan?
Yeah, because I don't know positive on that, but that was a theory of mine also, because this is not done by MGM, right? It's a different studio. So maybe that has something to do with it, the rights to the music?
Could be as simple as that.
I want to talk about something big that's missing.
Go for it.
Philadelphia is just not here. And I want to lodge an official complaint with whoever I can on that. No, but I think, I was thinking about, as you're talking about music, one of the most compelling things, and maybe this is said with a full Philly bias, is in Creed 1, you have the elements of the original soundtrack, and you have Meek Mill as like one of the most dynamic hip hop stars and Philly's own. And like you have this kind of marriage of this like triumphal, intense orchestral music, like with Meek Mill featuring Swizz Beatz. What I took away from Creed 3, which is all LA, like they've replaced the Art Museum steps with
the Hollywood sign.
With the Hollywood sign, and like the if you go where they're where Creed is ascending for his training, like if you go today, you'll bump into reality stars and others who like train in the same place. But there was this battle for LA, and they opened the film with Dr. Dre's The Watcher, and then they interpolate it later, I believe, J. Cole. But it's kind of like there's a bit of LA music, but it's not committed to it. It's just kind of there. So I have the Philly bias. I was waiting for a Philly reference. We didn't get it. I'll live. But I do think like the texture of the place, like it was jarring to see I like Dodger Stadium sold me, but calling it the Battle of LA, I felt like that was really underdeveloped. Like there was so much there that could have been pulled out if it went deeper. But there were moments of it. So I don't want to say it was totally missing, but I that was something I really wanted to see more of, is a conversation with the city.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I missed that as well for sure. But so it was fun nonetheless.
That's
really, really quick, Paul. Where would you rank this? I don't need the exact number, but in the Rocky series, where would this fall? I wrote down.
I want to hear
somewhere,
your take. Yeah.
Somewhere between. It's the back half, but I'm not saying it's the like a terrible movie, but I think it's somewhere between like 4 through 9. It didn't crack my top 3 Creed/Rocky movies. How about you?
Yeah, I think that this
maybe like 4 through 6 or somewhere around there.
Yeah, I guess like I went in. I don't think for me it was better than Creed 1, but it didn't peter out. Like it gave new life to the series, and I'm excited for what potential new directions there are.
Matt, do you got a jaw-dropping moment here? Something we haven't highlighted yet?
This is a bit of a spoiler, but I don't think anybody who is going to Creed 3 doesn't think that Creed is going to get into the ring. When that moment happens, I just remember like that was the moment I was like, oh my God. I was a little like, I don't know how to feel about this. It's so silly and predictable. My jaw was on the floor. I was like, come on. But ultimately, it kind of won me over.
My jaw-dropping moment was that Adonis Creed is in his basement, his man cave, and he has all this memorabilia up. He's got jerseys of Kobe Bryant. He's got jerseys of Shaq. He's got all these pictures up of Apollo Creed. You're telling me he wouldn't have something from Rocky? We wouldn't see some sort of memorabilia of actual Rocky Balboa? I didn't see anything.
Of disbelief.
Rocky's name does come up a few times, right? Like they're talking about really whenever they talk about an underdog, Rocky's there, but it's in the context of Apollo Creed giving Rocky a shot. I'm surprised by that. I have to say, like a jaw-dropping moment for me, it's not even the most compelling one, but in one of these, Matt, you said that Creed's going to get back in the ring and come out of retirement. So he's in his training mode, and he pulls a plane with not a car, not a truck, but a plane. Yes. And I just laughed out loud, LOL, for real, in the theater, because it was just the way it happened. Like there was everything else made more sense in the montage, and that was just I didn't know what it was doing there, but it was effective because it struck me out of my haze, and it made me more aware of what was going on.
That's good stuff. But yeah, he needs to show some love to Rocky Balboa in that man cave. I mean, Rocky ended the Cold War, heavyweight champion numerous times. Put up a picture of the guy somewhere in the basement.
He had a little picture of him on the desk. It was a small one.
Movie poster quote, Matt.
Creed 3 is a familiar combo, but it still lands.
Ooh.
I went with,
I like that.
It worked 8 times already. Just give us your money.
Yeah, they should put that on the DVD for sure. How many jaws you giving this thing, Ryan?
We're on a 4-jaw scale here, Paul. I went 2.5 jaws for Creed. 2.5.
Ditto.
I'm recommending.
That's where I landed as well. 2.5 jaws. This is a popcorn movie. Get out there, have some fun, watch Creed 3. I think you'll enjoy it. How about you, Paul?
I don't know if I can do in between jaws, but I'm either 2.5 or 3.
You can dust off the quarter jaw, 2.75.
Yeah, can I do a 2.75?
Yeah.
And like I said,
We'll allow
I have a recency bias. I really just was in the theater, but again, and I felt like it ended on a strong note, and I'm excited to see how it will kind of live in the culture as well.
Ditto.
2.5 Jaws for Rye the Movie Guy and Matt K. 2.75. It would have been 3, but there wasn't enough Philly in there for Paul, but he lands at 2.75. That brings us to our top 5, which is boss battles. These are final confrontations, movies where one person we know is going to fight the other person at the end of the movie or darn near the end of the film. Matt, you want to kick us off this week?
Sure. I'll get us started. At number 5, I have the final confrontation of Bruce Leroy against the Shogun of Harlem, Sho'nuff, in the masterpiece, the Kung Fu 80s pop masterpiece, The Last Dragon.
Nice.
And I forced Ryan to watch this movie, Paul. I don't remember why. We were just doing a retro review.
I forget, but yeah, this was only maybe a year ago, two years ago tops.
I grew up with The Last Dragon. I rewatched it for this retro review. Thought it still held up amazing. And when he is holding the Shogun of Harlem, who's been this Darth Vader type character, like unbeatable, is holding Leroy's head in this bucket of water, and we think he's going to drown him. And he keeps trying to get him to say, "Who's the master? Who's the master?" And finally, Bruce Leroy comes up and he says, "Me." And then he proceeds to kick his ass. That's a triumphant moment. It's one that always stuck with me, man. I love that movie. Love that scene.
It's a good one.
My number 5.
That's great.
I like kicking it off this way. I should mention, JawHeads, that Paul has decided to do all 5 Rocky boss battles.
Rockyverse, yeah.
Rockyverse. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go next, and we're going to let Paul finish the round because it'll always finish with a Rocky fight. Sound good?
I like that. I like that.
So my number 5 pick, if I told you it was Josh versus Jonathan, it would mean nothing to you. But JawHeads who are fans of the Queen's Gambit, go back and watch the 1993 film Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Nice.
And in it, we have Josh, who is a 7-year-old kid, becomes obsessed with chess. He sees these guys playing, one of them being Larry Fishburne, out in the park, and he becomes obsessed with chess and all things to do with it. He learns, one of his teachers is Ben Kingsley. It's a great cast in this movie. Laura Linney also is in there. And they train this guy, and he is intimidated by Jonathan, who is also a child prodigy. And this is all leading up to this chess championship. And they face each other, and they face off for the championship. And one thing that I love in all boss battles is when the underdog, in this case Josh, does something different, much like Rocky and Rocky 2. Rocky was a southpaw, if you'll remember, but in Rocky 2, he starts fighting right-handed, which threw off Apollo Creed. You could see rounds 1 through 7, Apollo didn't know what was going on. Then he switches back to being a southpaw. In this case, Josh goes to street chess, which was what Larry Fishburne was teaching him, and he starts doing some moves that you wouldn't play like traditional chess kind of moves.
Right,
and
right.
It looks bad for him, but it also helps him in another way. And my favorite scene of it is, I rewatched it today. Right at one moment, Ben Kingsley realizes Josh can win, and he's like, he's got him in 12 moves. This narration goes over, and it's Kingsley talking. He's like, he's got him in 12 moves. Bishop here, blah, blah, blah. And it's zooming in on Josh's face as he's seeing it all on the board. Fantastic little movie. Searching for Bobby Fischer.
True story, if I'm not mistaken.
That was my number 5. What do we got in the Rocky universe here, Paul?
Yeah, I was tempted to do Rocky versus the Steps, Rocky versus raw eggs. But I'm going to go purely when there's 2 people together. So my number 5 is Rocky Balboa versus Clubber Lang, otherwise known as Mr. T. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's Rocky 3. This is the introduction of the statue, the Rocky statue. So, I'm a little partial to it. But just from that moment at the Art Museum steps where Clubber Lang says, "Give him the guts." rather than give him a statue. I think of that as, one of the top five boss battles. And, there's mystery behind the Clubber Lang.
I love it. I love it because that's a worthy number 5. He definitely had to be mentioned from Chicago. Clubber Lang.
I pity the fool who wouldn't have that at number 5. Frankly,
that was our connection to the Rocky universe. Was Clubber Lang from Chicago?
It's all connected.
I actually used to be a doorman at a bar across the street from the place that Mr. T was the doorman, like famously.
Is that 1 degree of separation?
I think so. Maybe even like a half a degree.
1.75.
Yeah,
okay.
People would stop and ask me, "Hey, which place did Mr. T used to work at?" I'm like, "Right here,
sure.
Come on in."
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they used
Make
to
a
say.
muscle.
Oh no, I'm serious. Right, they did. People would when I was a doorman on Division Street, people would stop and say, "Which place did Mr. T work at?" And I would always say, "Right here, come on in." That was my line. Seriously, happened almost every weekend. All right, swinging it to my number 5. I'm sorry, swinging it to my number 4. I am going with the Ghostbusters versus Gozer the Gozerian.
That's a great answer.
/ the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in the ultimate scene of Ghostbusters. The classic movie, one of the best boss battles of all time, because I think one of the things that makes a great boss battle are waves, or you can call them phases, right? Like you first knock the armor off the boss, and then it shapeshifts into something else, or brings out a new weapon or a new technique that you now have to defeat that phase of it. It happened in Creed 3 as well. And here Gozer is first fighting as this female kind of demon type creature, and then she transforms into the Destructor in the form of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Beyond hilarious. The special effects, I think, are still pretty damn good to this day, especially some of the flames and stuff. They did a great job on the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's a fun scene, man. Just rewatch Ghostbusters. It's worth it.
It is a fun one. It is a fun one. My number 4 is actually more about the journey to get to the boss battle.
Okay.
And sometimes that lead up to it, if they're actually even going to get to the boss battle, is part of the excitement. And that happened when Hugh Glass took on John Fitzgerald in The Revenant 2015. After being left for dead, mauled by a bear, and seeing his son killed by Fitzgerald, Glass, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, basically crawls his way through a wintry terrain to get his revenge. And I mean, that's the entire movie, is him crawling around and trying to get back to find this Fitzgerald. And he eventually does. Fitzgerald is played by Tom Hardy, and they eventually meet outside the fort. And again, it's this sort of great landscape, large scope, and yet it's just two men trying to fight each other, one looking for revenge. And it's just in a wonderful moment of peaking at the right time. He eventually, the fight takes place hand-to-hand combat, and well, let's just say Hugh Glass ends up letting him go because he sees he's going to get his death a different way. It's wonderful.
It's brutal is what it is. That whole movie is absolutely brutal in every way. The weather, obviously the animals, the human beings, brutality for 2.5 hours.
It's one of those, you always hear these stories oh, the actor had to do all this to make the movie. And a lot of times you're like, whatever, come on, it's making a movie. This one, when you're watching it, has that feeling oh my God, they went through hell to make this damn movie in all these locations and crawling around the ground and in the rivers and being mauled by bears. It just looked like a rough filming,
I got to rewatch The Revenant, man.
What do we got number 4 in the Rockyverse, Paul?
Okay. So I'm going outside the ring. I'm going to Rocky 5. And it is the fight.
Oh, no.
Yeah, yes, that's right. It's the fight between Rocky Balboa and Tommy Gunn.
The street fight.
The street fight. And
why don't you try knocking me down?
Exactly. Was that a sound effect or was that? No,
that was me.
That was right. Okay. So, it sticks out to me for a few reasons. One is, you get this the character arc across the franchise at various points, but as it goes forward, of like Rocky is both someone who gets trained as a pupil and also a coach and a teacher. And so you have the figure Tommy Gunn shows up in Philly from, I believe, Oklahoma, and, you know, wants to be trained. And then you have this moment of betrayal. And so there's this kind of, you know, I don't know, like a mentor-mentee energy going on, or even perhaps a kind of father-son dynamic. And so there's like a violation of trust of like of the code. And it feels like Rocky is reluctant to fight, but is compelled to fight. So it always sticks out to me. I remember reading somewhere that like there was a take on the script that Rocky Balboa was going to die in like the first draft or so of the script, and they changed it. It wasn't the right ending. And I feel like the ending, I don't know, it was one of those moments where you can imagine like the movie theater cheering for what they've done a straw poll unofficially of like who they want to cheer for and who they want to boo for. And then like what I also love is like right after that scene, you know, Rocky and his son are back at the art museum. They have reinstalled the statue. And the contrast to it is that, you know, Rocky kind of comes to terms with his statue there and looks at the art museum and says like, oh, I think what do they have in that place? Like a bunch of Picassos. It's like the Jedi mind trick, considering how much Sylvester Stallone absolutely loves art and his goal was to be a part of the tradition in the museum. But I love that contrast of like all the interesting things that happen, not just in the ring, but out in the streets of Philly.
Wow. It is my least favorite Rocky film, so I'm shocked that it appeared on a list here, Paul, but I'll just take your word for it.
To be clear, I will make no rankings of it in the series because I think I might have to rank it lower, but I that scene just sticks out to me for what
right.
it's doing.
Somehow Rocky 5 made a top 5 list. We've been doing this show for
okay.
600 episodes now, Matt.
600.
And it's the first time we got a Rocky 5 reference on a top 5. Into our threes we go.
Yes. At number 3, I am going with Eowyn versus the Witch King of Angmar in the final episode of The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. This is the leader of the Nazgul. Now, this is technically a mini boss, but I think if you think about it, the Nazgul, or the ring wraiths, are really the physical embodiment of Sauron throughout the entire series. Like Frodo and the other hobbits encounter them on the road like 30 minutes into the first movie, and they are the ones pursuing Frodo for the most part throughout. So you'll have to forgive me because it's just a badass scene. And like Sauron, his fatal mistake is underestimating a hobbit, because Pippin comes up and stabs him in the leg, which gives Eowyn the opening with her famous line, because he utters the line, "No, I'm the Witch King. No man can kill me." And she says, "I'm no man." After she takes off her helmet, lets her hair go, boom, right in the face with a sword. The armor crumples like a tin can and contorts. Such a cool demise for such an evil character that even Gandalf was afraid of, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep. My only problem with it is it's a very quick fight. Like there's a lot going on in that scene, and then that's like a quick.
What are you saying? It's a quick fight. The whole movie, the battle of
I'm saying
Minas
between
Tirith,
those
dude.
those two characters is maybe 30 seconds.
Their engagement is short, but it is consequential. So
it is. My number 3 pick, a film I have talked about a lot. Matt loves when I talk about this movie, but I don't get enough to talk about this particular scene, and it's my favorite moment in the movie. Horse racing, Matt, and you know how much I love Seabiscuit. Seabiscuit versus War Admiral is incredible, right?
Oh, boy.
Seabiscuit, now this is a true story, based on a true story.
That's a race. That's not a boss battle, dude.
I love your range, guys. Like,
there we go.
I'm here for this.
Okay, so Seabiscuit versus War Admiral was billed at the time of the race of the century. The race drew a radio audience of over 40 million people back in 1938. And one of my favorite parts of this is as they lead into the race, the narrator in the film comes on and talks about how many people were in attendance, how businesses had to close early, how many hot dogs were sold. It really adds to the flavor of the moment. And then the race takes place. And what's so unique about this particular, I'm using the phrase here, Matt, boss battle, is there's no other horses on the race except these two. And they start off with just a bell ringing. So they're not in a gate. They're just standing there. The bell rings and the two horses go. And there's the little thing about it is that Seabiscuit will only, his like superpower, if you will, is he needs to be behind at the end of the race, and he needs to sort of smell and feel the other horse, and he'll overcome him. But he starts off good, and maybe he could win the thing, but the jockey pulls back to let War Admiral take the lead. And he even whispers, he's like, I hope they're right about this. And Tobey Maguire is in the hospital at this point. Jeff Bridges is the owner of the horse. Elizabeth Banks is in this. And they're all watching, and they're saying, like, take it easy, because they know Seabiscuit's going to get that adrenaline at the right time. And then they wait until that last turn. And then, I mean, I get chills when I watch this. I've seen it numerous times. I still get chills when they say, let him loose. And he goes, and the music kicks in, and Seabiscuit takes off. Oh, I get tears in my eyes.
Dude, maybe you should have been a cowboy or something, you know? Maybe you missed your calling.
Yeah. Seabiscuit. Get involved, Matt.
I don't know. Maybe.
I know that Rocky V doesn't have another fight in it, so I know we're done with Rocky V. Where do we go with number 3, Paul?
Okay, so in honor of that number 3, I'm bringing Creed 3 because Adonis Creed and Damian Anderson in Dodger Stadium, I think that this fight, the boss battle nature of it is, of course, all of the fireworks and the intense energy, but it is also this moment where they realize they're fighting each other and themselves. And there's something that happens in this fight, you know, in part due to the IMAX technology, but also to the storyline, that you get a glimpse into the inner psyche of each of these characters and their shared lives. And so, you know, for all of the hoopla and also all of that, like the window into the soul. Yes, I said window into the soul for the boss battle section. I'm putting Creed 3, Adonis Creed, and Damian Anderson in the battle for LA and LA Dodger Stadium.
Nice. Wow. Hot off the press, and it's in his top 5. I love it. Bold move. I like that.
Yeah, it's a hot take, but that was number 3, so I went with Creed 3.
The thing is, you really can't knock it because that was a phenomenal fight scene, and it's got 2 of the best actors working today, and in my opinion, maybe one of the very best. So
yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Michael B. Jordan being one of the best. I mean, I like the guy, but again, you overstated all these things too much.
Let me
2 of the best actors working today.
I don't think that's much of an overstatement, but I'll pull it back a little and say 2 of the biggest draws. Can we agree to that one?
No, I wouldn't think that either. I think a lot of people are still getting
about?
to know Jonathan Majors. He's not a major draw yet, but all right, go on.
Okay, one of the greatest actors and one of the greatest draws. Better, Rye? Is that good?
Okay, I like it. We'll give that an exception.
Jeez. All right. Into our number 2s. Oh, we're going to pause.
Let's take a break. Yeah, let's take a break here.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll finish our top 2s, plus play some movie trivia. Stick with us, JawHeads.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Sometimes you just need more Willem Dafoe. And that's what we got in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man, as the fragile psyche of Norman Osborn fractures into the demented Green Goblin.
Somebody there?
Somebody.
Who said that?
Downplay the innocent with me. You've known all along.
Where are you?
Follow the cold shiver running down your spine. I'm right here.
I don't understand.
Did you think it was coincidence? So many good things all happening for you. All for you, Norman.
What do you want?
To say what you won't. To do what you can't. To remove those in your way.
The board members. You killed them.
We killed them.
We?
Remember your little accident in the laboratory?
Performance enhancers.
Bingo. Me, your greatest creation. Bringing you what you've always wanted. Power beyond your wildest dreams, and it's only the beginning. There's only one who can stop us. Or imagine if he joined us.
CinemaJaw is brought to you by the guys over at Cracking the Code of Spy Movies podcast. If you're into spy movies and you're into podcasts, you should definitely listen to this one. Then you know what? I'll let them tell you about it.
You love spy movies? Well, our show is all about spy movies, from the classics like The 39 Steps, The Ipcris File, to James Bond, Mission Impossible, and current releases like No Time to Die. This is Dan Silvestri.
And Tom Pizzato.
Just go to your favorite podcast app and search Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Do the same on YouTube. Our show decodes key scenes, dives into connections and influences from other movies, does interviews with actors and directors, and keeps you informed with our spy movie news segment, all while having fun. Podcasts and YouTube videos. Join us on Cracking the Code of Spy Movies.
And we are back on CinemaJaw, hanging out with Paul Farber. His podcast, The Statue, which looks at the Rocky statue, is available. Do check it out, JawHeads. Before we get back to our list, we threw at least one item, I think at the top of the show, into the fish tank, and Phil's back. So let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be back and be back out. I'm feeling good, feeling refreshed. Nails are prettier than ever. And, okay, you guys know probably my favorite thing to get thrown into the fish tank is a highly ambiguous question. And okay, my second favorite thing is probably a question that there are stakes to. I guess that's a pun intended. Because you guys are split, right? I think it was Ryan, you had said you think he's human, or was that Matt?
Mm-hmm. That was me.
I said vampire.
Okay. We should put money down on this because this is...
Well, you should remind the JawHeads what the question was.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, JawHeads. Yeah, it was Willem Dafoe a vampire in Daybreakers? Matt is saying that Willem Dafoe is a human, and Ryan is saying that he was a vampire in that film, to see if there was a second vampire performance by Willem Dafoe. And I don't have an official answer on this. And I don't know what to count it. I think... technically, Matt wins in my book because Willem Dafoe plays a human who has been cured of vampirism. So he was a former vampire and isn't anymore.
But in the film, he's a human for the whole movie.
Yes,
he's a former vampire.
He's and he got cured of his vampirism because he got ejected in a daytime car crash from his sunlight ceiling car. It sounds really goofy and ridiculous, but my thought process is I'm not 13 anymore, so I'm not a theater kid. I'm just Phil. And if someone referred to me as a theater kid still, I'd be like, what the hell? So I say point goes to Matt Kay.
Yeah, I'll take a point.
What's crazier here, Matt, we reviewed that movie on the show.
Yeah.
Even as Phil's describing it, I can't even draw anything from the movie.
I remember it. I remember the car crash and all that. So, in all honesty, he may have been a vampire very, very briefly in the film. So
we
can call it a wash.
Did that car crash play out as goofy as it sounds, Matt? Because it sounds pretty goofy. And it's hard for me to take Willem Dafoe being cured of vampirism in a car crash where he's ejected from his daylight ceiling car seriously.
Oh, you better take that seriously, Phil. That's like serious as a heart attack. Let me tell you. No. I was high on the film. It was not that goofy. It was actually a worthwhile spin for sure.
All right. While we're in the fish tank, we threw a question out on the Facebook. You know, the old Facebook. We haven't been using it a lot. And I told Matt in our last CinemaJaw meeting, we got to use the Facebook a little bit, connect with the JawHeads. So since we're celebrating Willem Dafoe, we threw out a simple question. What is your favorite Willem Dafoe performance? And we got a few responses. A couple I wanted to read here. Our friend Elliot Serrano wrote in Platoon, which is when I first discovered him. Great call by Elliot, because I think that's right around the first time I discovered him too. I'm trying to think, and it had to be right around then. That's like mid to late 80s Platoon. So I think that's where I probably knew him as well. Alex Staharsky wrote, Wild at Heart. Bobby Peru is possibly the most memorable part of an already incredibly memorable movie. Chalk this one up, Alex, as another Willem Dafoe film I have not seen. We're at 2 major works of Willem Dafoe that I have to catch up with.
I got a couple too, Ryan, on my personal Facebook page. And John Robinson, our good friend, fellow critic, chimed in to say, The Last Temptation of Christ, and nothing else comes close. Very
Another
passionate.
one I haven't seen. I have not seen The Last Temptation of Christ.
I saw it like right when it came out, because it was almost like, you had to see it. And I don't remember it. I need to watch it again. Long time. A couple other people mentioned Last Temptation of Christ, including longtime friend and frequent guest of the show, Charles Klein. He also mentions Live and Die in L.A. Charles did. And one last one I want to mention is from David J. Coote, who wrote Boondock Saints. He also goes on to say Platoon. I forgot Willem Dafoe was in Boondock Saints.
I did too. But once you say that now, it does ring a bell.
I'm actually going to fact check that. I'm not sure he is in it.
I believe he is in it. I think he's right. That totally makes sense to me.
Oh, yeah. He's the cop. He's the cop. Yes.
Interesting. Wow. What a career. If you're not a Patreon, maybe good time to join, because we're going to have fun with a retro review pick 2. Just picking a movie is going to be tough to do for Willem Dafoe. I'm going to have to pick a good one.
I know exactly where I'm going personally. Please don't. Are you going to go Lars Van Trier? Because I don't know if I can watch that movie again, honestly.
I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know where. I got to look over the filmography first, Matt. I got to do my homework here.
All right.
One last order of business looking at next week. A little preview here. Our plan right now is to review 65 with Adam Driver.
I'm excited.
I don't know what we're going to do with top 5. Prehistoric. I don't know where we're going to go with that. That's our plan right now, is to review 65 with Adam Driver.
Best non-Jurassic Park dinosaur movies? Who knows?
How many are there? We'll discuss, but there are little tease there for next week. That was everything in the fish tank. Jump back in there, Phil.
You bet.
All right. Always good to hear from the JawHeads, Matt. Let's get back into our list. We dropped off after our 3s. We still got our heavy hitters here. What do you got sitting at number 2?
At number 2, well, here's my thinking behind this one. I think we've talked about the way that boss battles have waves. We've talked about the journey to get there. We haven't talked much about the motivation. And revenge is also often at the forefront of motivation, driving a character toward his final confrontation. It's a great, sort of noble pursuit. And I don't think anybody did it better than Inigo Montoya when he faced off against Count Tyrone Rugen, also known as the Six-Fingered Man, at the end of The Princess Bride. Wonderful. Like, if you think about Wesley versus the Prince, that's not nearly as good as Inigo versus the Six-Fingered Man. And that's the fight we all wanted to see. And it did not disappoint. There's daggers being thrown. There's lines being repeated, which have been repeated so many times, I'm not even going to bother. And, oh my God, wow. I could watch that movie again and again and again. And I still love that scene. I still love the whole damn movie. It's great. It's a perfect movie.
Wonderful film. Glad it came up because that is a worthy number 2. I thought, to be honest, that could have been your number 1. I'm shocked. I don't know what you have at number 1.
Oh, okay. Really? You don't know? Okay.
I don't.
Interesting.
All right, we'll see. My number 1 pick, 2 heavyweights, Russell Crowe versus Joaquin Phoenix, Gladiator 2000. Yeah. This movie came out. You got Maximus unfairly stabbed right in the beginning, before they even fight. We get some dirty play from Joaquin Phoenix. He stabs Maximus and right in the side, and he's bleeding out basically throughout the entire fight. But he goes out into the Coliseum and still takes on Joaquin Phoenix's character and ends up winning. And of course he's going to win. I mean, he's went through this entire journey. He's, had tigers come out of the ground and horses and carriages come after him. And he's been able to defeat everything in that Coliseum. Now, of course, he's going to take on the single man, even though he's king of the empire, and he defeats him. The music here is great. The ending of Gladiator, very emotional moment. I think they handled that very well as far as like lifting up Maximus at the end and giving him like the proper quote unquote burial here. Was the fight necessarily as good as it possibly could have been? Maybe not. But again, sometimes the lead up to that boss battle is what really makes the movie. And this was highly anticipated that he was going to get his full revenge.
It's no Shogun of Harlem, but yeah, I'll give it to you, Rye.
That was my number 2. We go to the Rocky universe for Paul. Paul, what do we got sitting there?
I'm going back to the original Rocky 1.
Well done.
So my number 2 boss battle is Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed. And I think about that fight. I have to remind myself that Rocky didn't win. And the 2 boxers went the distance. I think from the very beginning of the series, you get this, like, the complicated nature of boxing and art and life blurring. And this truly is a moment where, like, 2 opponents end with profound respect for each other. So I just think of that as a classic boss battle, but one that spawned a Rockyverse and did so with nuance, like the nuances around race, gender, class, what it means to have love inside, outside the ring, your team, your family, your people. So I'm putting Rocky 1, Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed as my number 2 boss battle.
That fight, everything about it. How about when he gets his eye cut open because his lid is just shut, and so he says, "Cut me, Mick, cut me." Yeah. And they cut him, and so that he could see out the lid of his eye. That's fantastic. And then Adrian loses her hat.
Adrian loses her hat. Yeah. Oh, and behind the scenes, by the way, like that was like one of the most challenging scenes that they shot. Sometimes there were extras in the room, and sometimes they shot with no one else there. Like the fact that was iconic, like, was part of that against all odds behind the scenes work that informed what happened on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it's been a long time since I've revisited the original Rocky, maybe since the early 90s. I got to give the whole...
It's time.
The whole
Academy
series.
Award winning.
I know.
Academy Award winning. Yeah.
Yep. It's a great one for sure. Wow. Came in at number 2 on Paul's list. That leads us to our number 1s, Matt. I'm thinking maybe there's a Star Wars fight here.
No. I mean, I think that would have been too easy. Honorable mention
I did
for
too.
me.
And it's its own thing. You could do your own boss battles in Star Wars at this point, you know?
You could. All right. I'll give you a hint, Ryan, see if you can suss this one out. Get away from her, you bitch.
Ooh, you went aliens, eh?
I did, yes. That is the first scene that popped into my head when we decided on doing boss battles. It is Ellen Ripley versus the queen of the alien horde. That mechanized suit that she gets, such a cool like cyberpunk scene where she's like physically wrestling with this giant xenomorph with this construction suit. Basically, it's like a mech, but it's meant for construction, not battle. But it was just enough to wrestle the thing into the airlock. She slams the door. I mean, the whole battle is fantastic for a human to go toe to toe physically with a xenomorph, especially after the bloodbath and acid bath we just took for the last 2 hours. It's just a great, satisfying, wonderful scene from the 80s. Just, I mean, at its best. Ripley at her best.
Right up there with Stallone knocking out Tommy Gunn.
Right up there, Ryan.
I love it. My number 1, I go over to little Quentin Tarantino's gave us some boss battles. And he gave us 2 films series, the Kill Bill 1 and 2. And I always think that Kill Bill Volume 1 goes on such a high note. It is my number 1 boss battle. It is the Bride versus O-Ren Shi, played by
Lucy
Liu. Yep.
Oh, wow.
And just to get to face Lucy Liu here, the Bride actually has to face the Crazy 88s prior to that, which is an unbelievable scene, master filmmaking at its best. And that leads us then to this boss battle that takes place out in the snow. Tarantino slows it down. We get this wonderful moment where all the music sort of stops and there's that water fountain behind them that is filling up and dropping the water. And it makes it like a intimate moment between these two combatants that are about to have a showdown with these swords. And the way the Bride ends up dismantling Lucy Liu is fantastic. And I only wish that Kill Bill Volume 2 also would have went out with a awesome battle. Instead, it went out with that little heart punch.
Yeah, 5-finger death punch.
That's
right?
what it was, the 5-finger death punch.
I don't think that's what it's called. I think that's the name of a band, but something like that.
Whatever that was. That scene is great in its own way with the whole conversation between Bill and the Bride. But when we're talking about boss battles, an actual fight that led up to this moment, the Bride versus O-Ren Shi in the first Kill Bill is my number 1 pick.
Can't argue with it, man. Great pick.
So let's take a couple of guesses here, Matt, on Paul's number 1. There's only a few left. He can either go Rocky versus Apollo the second time, and he actually beats Apollo in 2. He could go there. My gut, though, is telling me this is when Rocky wins and ends the Cold War, and he's going to go with Rocky
That's where
4.
I would
Is
go.
that where you're going to?
That's where I would go.
think that's
yeah.
where he's going to go. Paul, the stage is yours. Your number 1 boss battle in the Rocky universe.
Yeah, you both are correct. That my number 1 boss battle in the Rockyverse is Rocky Balboa versus Ivan Drago.
Yes.
And, like this, I almost wanted to have Rocky versus Siberia, Rocky versus his giant shearling coat that he has to navigate with. But, it's all there. And I think, this is where like the geopolitics of Rocky play out. And, in the film itself, like there's a lot going on here. There is what it means to be an underdog versus what does it mean to be like, in like amazing, kind of 80s computer technology, like the equivalent of kind of like data science for athletics now, but it looked like, like 8-bit Nintendo.
Yes, it did.
Aiding the Soviets and the training of Ivan Drago. There is the kind of vengeance, but also redemption for Apollo Creed, who had been, killed in the ring by Drago. There's the drama of, the Soviet leaders and Brigitte Nelson, who is like in the film on Team Drago, but in real life was attached to Stallone. So, just to have all this drama in it. And I'm just thinking about, again, like the behind our podcast, art and life are blurring all the time. This is a series. I talked to a colleague who grew up in a former Soviet state. And like right around the time of the dissolution of the Soviet Union, she's talked about seeing this film, and like the Rocky series became her orientation to the United States. And, there's a lot of things you could like poke holes at if you want to. And, there's all this kind of drama and flair, but Rocky IV delivers, and it gives a glimpse into like the staying power and the big drama that the series keeps up to this day.
One of the remarkable things that took place during that fight was that Rocky was such a fan favorite that at around the 7th round, maybe the 8th round, the Russians actually start cheering for Rocky. Now, a round in boxing is 3 minutes long. So we're talking in the span of about 21 minutes, the entire crowd of Russians turn their back on their national hero, Drago, and start cheering for Rocky. He was that big of a presence, Matt Kay.
It's amazing, and this is the movie where we finally understand Rocky's not going anywhere. I can't remember what year Spaceballs came out in, but it was certainly in the 80s, and they make that joke in Spaceballs, Rocky 5,000. And here we are today, guys.
I forgot about that joke. That Spaceballs one of the Boss's movies.
But he suffered brain damage versus Drago, and that's what led to Rocky 5 was because he had major brain damage. So
well, and look, let's also honorable mention here the beginning of Rocky 4. The fight versus Hulk Hogan's Hulk Hogan, which is
that's in 3. That's the beginning of 3.
Oh, is that 3? Oh, I'm so sorry. So I'm thinking about giant blonde fighters, and so I'm confusing that there. But I do want to put that in as at least an honorable mention.
Hell yeah!
But it didn't officially make the top 5 because truly that fight with Drago stands the test of time. And let's just also note, like, there's rumors of a Drago spin-off series.
Oh no!
And there's the younger Drago, is in the Creed series and makes a reappearance in Creed 3. So just note the afterlife of the Cold War, the geopolitics of the Rockyverse of the Creed story. It's still with us today. That's part of the staying power of this ultimate boss battle.
We'll see where they can spin this thing off, because I heard rumors that Mick, the original trainer back in the 80s, like tore up Yugoslavia looking for young fighters and had a few bastard sons over there. They may come looking for revenge.
Yeah, or Mick himself. Like, what's his story? Let's find out,
Well, he had a funeral in Rocky 3, and as we found out in the funeral, it was a Jewish funeral, and Rocky recites the Mourner's Kaddish. And that's something like my grandfather was a member of the South Philly High Boxing Club. So seeing a Jewish fighter, but who had never been identified as one until his funeral. And like it also pointed out, again, I look for those small details, but those little details matter in the series. You never know when it's going to come back.
Oh, that is a great little detail to explore. I agree.
Yes. Other honorable mentions here, Matt, outside of the Rocky
I only
universe.
have one.
Go ahead.
It's Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It must be mentioned.
Yeah,
I agree, because the whole thing is boss battles. So you could really pick multiple boss battles within that one movie. I went with The Matrix, and I'm talking the first Matrix.
That's on my list too.
Neo versus Agent Smith in the subway.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, the flailing
Paul
arm.
is doing the flailing arms, that move that he does.
If I had the flexibility, I would do that for things coming my way. No, that's that's epic and stands the test of time.
One that I left off my list on purpose because we bring up the movie all the time. Maybe the granddaddy of them all that hasn't been mentioned here. The Karate Kid. Daniel
I'm really
LaRusso,
surprised you
First
didn't
Johnny.
have this.
It's interesting.
We've brought up Karate Kid numerous times. It's absolutely fantastic. And then lastly was Miracle, the USA hockey team versus the Russian hockey team. It is a sports movie, but it's all leading up to that moment and that
geopolitics.
It's
Right.
fantastic.
You all have such range. I am glad I was taking mental notes because I really appreciate it, and I have some homework to do to go back to this list.
Yeah, that's our aim, man. Hopefully we get people
Absolutely.
excited to watch a bunch of movies, you know?
Yes. And JawHeads, if we missed one of your favorite boss battles and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet. We're at CinemaJaw. Our email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. We like to end these podcasts with some fun trivia. And in honor of Creed 3, we are playing boxing movie trivia. Paul, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first or let Matt K go first. There are steals. And I will say they start off easy, Paul.
Okay, I'm going in as a true underdog here, but I'm going to defer. Respect is due to you, Matt.
Okay. I don't know how much of an underdog you are. I'm probably the underdog.
Question 1 over to Matt K. Christian Bale won an Oscar for supporting actor for his role in this boxer movie.
I think it was just called The Fighter.
That is correct. 1-0, Matt K. They start off easy here. Question over to Paul. Name the boxing movie that starred Hilary Swank, Clint Eastwood, and won the Best Picture Oscar.
$1 Million Baby?
That is correct.
Okay.
1-1. What a match we have here.
Da-da-da. Da-da-da.
Question 3 over to Matt K. Who played Robert De Niro's brother in Raging Bull?
Joe Pesci.
That is correct.
I've heard things.
Question 4 over to Paul. In the 2001 movie Ali, who played Muhammad Ali?
In Will Smith.
That is correct.
Speaking of Philly.
2-2. This is a really good match. My, oh my, what a boss battle we have here. Question 5 over to Matt K. Matt, who played the lead, Billy Hop, in the 2015 movie Southpaw?
I don't know why, but I think I'm going to take a guess and say Mark Wahlberg.
That, my friend, is incorrect. Paul, you got a chance for a steal here.
If I get it wrong, do I lose a point? It doesn't matter. I'm going for it.
Yeah, you don't lose a point, so.
Mickey Rourke?
Oh, that is incorrect. We are looking for Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal was in Southpaw. It's still 2-2, and question 6 is over to Paul. Paul, Mike Tyson has made one movie with Bradley Cooper. Name it.
The Hangover.
There we go. Paul takes a lead here. All of a sudden, advantage Paul. It's 3-2 with 2 questions left. Question 7, over to Matt. This 3-time Oscar winner for Best Actor starred in the Irish drama The Boxer in 1997. Name the actor.
Holy crap. 3-time Best Actor winner?
Yes. Stars in this Irish drama The Boxer in 1997.
Okay. Who's making Irish dramas in 1997? It's got to be a short list. This is before Colin Farrell's time. Who's making 97? Wow. Man, I have no clue. Not a big fan of Irish boxing dramas in 97. I was doing other things.
And don't you say Topher Grace.
Well, it's a 3-time Academy Award winning, and Topher's yet to get his nomination. It's coming.
We found out last week Matt's a huge Topher Grace fan.
He's underrated, I tell you. Okay. Wow, that is so hard. I really don't know. Liam Neeson. I got nothing.
Ooh, that's a good guess, but you are incorrect. Paul, you can win it right here. 3-time Oscar winner, making an Irish drama in 1997 called The Boxer. Who's that actor?
Is it Daniel Day-Lewis?
We have a winner. Paul gets it correct. He is winning 4-2, and there's only one question left. So Paul has won the match. The last question was this, Paul. Name the actress who starred as Diana Guzman in the 2000 film Girl Fight. Name the actress who starred as Diana Guzman in the 2000 film Girl Fight.
I'm really glad I got the last question right because I have no idea.
I've never even heard of this movie. I'll take a guess. Is it Cher?
Not Cher. We're looking for Michelle Rodriguez. Michelle Rodriguez on that last one. So
a Cher movie in boxing that would just be incredibly popcorn worthy.
Hell yeah!
Can I get a virtual handshake here?
Virtual fist bump.
There we go.
If it came down to a tie, we call it a jawbreaker here, Paul. The question would have been age of Joe Pesci closest to. Matt, you got to guess on Joe Pesci.
I believe Joe Pesci actually played Yoda in The Mandalorian. He might be 500 years old, but he looks great. I think he's probably in Earth years more like 80. Let's say, I'm going to say 80.
Lock him in at 80. Paul, you got to guess?
I'm going to go 73.
Believe it or not, he's 80 years old. Matt nailed that one.
Wow.
He turned 80 in February. So just this past month, he turned 80.
So how old was he in Home Alone?
Now we got to do some major math here. I mean, that was
math. Okay.
If he's
I'll get
80,
my calculator out.
Home Alone came out in 1990. So that is what?
37 years ago.
37 years ago. So there, you do the math.
I'm wrong on that. I'm wrong on that. 33 years ago.
33. Yeah, I thought so. So.
Okay, that fits the
57.
Yeah.
47.
No, 47. 47, right.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. This is why we have calculators. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I don't do math.
And producers.
Right.
Exactly.
He's been around for so long, though. Joe Pesci's a national treasure.
He is.
And I still wouldn't mess with him. Even at 80 years old, I'm sure he could kick my ass.
But Paul, does Joe Pesci have a statue? Is there a statue of Joe Pesci out that we don't know about?
I don't know of one. And I don't know of any characters that he played. But, there's always tomorrow.
I like it. We got to get that Joe Pesci statue made.
Let's get to work on that.
Home Alone, Chicago, this might be an opportunity for you to kind of like mirror the Rockyverse and see, how you bring that to life in Chicago.
Agreed. I mean, just a couple of years ago, Matt went and visited the Home Alone house.
No, it's an annual tradition now. We just went a few months ago.
I think you can Airbnb it. Though, if you think about it, the Rocky statue, 2 arms raised up. The Macaulay Culkin statue would have 2 hands to the face. And I don't know if there's something here, Philly-Chicago connection.
It's synergy.
Well, Matt wears like a worn leather jacket and these boots and chains. They thought he was one of the criminals from Home Alone. He was asked to leave the premises. Cops were called.
This is not true.
Oh, no?
This is not true. No.
Brings us to the end of the Jaw. And first and foremost, we got to thank Paul for coming on. Great to meet you, Paul. Love the podcast. And thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Ryan and Matt, thank you so much. This was fun. I hope I come back for another time, another set of rounds. Just want to appreciate you and really, really grateful that you, featured the statue.
You got it.
We also got to thank our engineer, our producer, back in the fish tank, Phil.
Thank you so much. It's great to be back. Just for the record, that's actually why I missed February. It's not because we have a good producer. It's because it took me that long. I finally figured out what 80 minus 33 was. So, and it was still a little late.
That's about how long it would have taken me.
Matt, we also got to thank our sponsors.
Yeah, thank you to Cracking the Code of Spy Movies and all the sponsors. Appreciate them.
Last but not least, we want to thank our Patreons. Thank you for supporting us there. We dropped another extra, our retro review twofer of Michelle Pfeiffer is out there right now. So listen to that one. Grease 2 and Dangerous Liaisons. Whew.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't get much better than that.
It really doesn't. If you want to join our family of Patreons, go over to patreon.com/CinemaJaw. Join us there. It would mean the world to us. Until next week, I'm Ryan, the movie guy.
I'm Matt Kay.
And keep on jawing about the movies.